Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Deedee. I post weekly vlogs, travel vlogs, and now bookish vlogs. So if you like what you see, please support my channel by commenting, liking, and subscribing. Today I'm going to be sharing 10 books that are on my November TBR. So I will start out by saying that I do not have a book club book on my TBR this month because my book club meets on the fourth Friday of the month. The fourth Friday of the month in November in the United States is the day after Thanksgiving. So we usually just skip over November and discuss our next book in December or January. I will likely know what that next book is by the end of this week as I'm recording this, but I just am not going to include it on the TBR. I'll probably start it in November, to be honest, but yeah, so we're just going to skip over that one. So getting right to it. The first book on my TBR for November is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. So this book came out a few years ago, and when I worked at Borders Books in the early 2000s, Borders has been defunct for about a decade or more now. I remember the Poisonwood Bible came out and it was a big hit, and I never read it because I was going through my whole if it's a bestseller, I'm too cool for it phase. So I never got to that one. I heard it was wonderful. I've never read anything by Barbara Kingsolver. My sister read Demon Copperhead probably right around the time it came out, maybe a little bit after, and she really liked it. So I am looking forward to this one. I've had it on my Kindle and on my overall TBR for a while, but I thought this is a good one for November. I don't know why. I don't know. So the description on Goodreads says, set in the mountains of southern Appalachia, this is a story of a boy born to his teenage single mother in a single white trailer with no assets beyond his dead father's good looks and copper-colored hair, a caustic wit, and a fierce talent for survival. I love that word caustic, especially when it's coupled with the word wit. I don't know what it is about anyway. In a plot that never pauses for breath, relayed in his own unsparing voice, he braves the modern perils of foster care, child labor, derelict schools, athletic success, addiction, disastrous loves, and crushing losses. Through all of it, he reckons with his own invisibility in a popular culture where even the superheroes have abandoned rural people in favor of cities. Many generations ago, Charles Dickens wrote David Copperfield from his experience as a survivor of institutional poverty and its damages to children in his society. Those problems have yet to be solved in ours. Dickens is not a prerequisite for readers of this novel, but he provided its inspiration. In transposing a Victorian epic novel to the contemporary American South, Barbara Kingsolver enlists Dickens' anger and compassion, and above all, his faith in the transformative powers of a good story. Demon Copperhead speaks for a new generation of lost boys and all those born into beautiful, cursed places they can't imagine leaving behind. So, reading the description, it doesn't really sound like something that would normally appeal to me. My sister and I generally have very similar tastes in books, so I'm going to give her credit on that and give it a whirl because I bet it's really good. So yeah, definitely going to read that. Book number 2 is a thriller. It's The New Couple in 5B. Yes, by Lisa Unger. I have not read anything by her that I can remember off the top of my head. I don't think I've read any of her books, but this one is available on Kindle Unlimited right now if you are, or at least it was when I checked it out, which was probably a really long time ago. It's probably just been sitting there. So if you do have Kindle Unlimited and this appeals to you, that might be something you want to look into. So the description on Goodreads says, a couple inherits an apartment with a spine-tingling past in this binge-worthy thriller from the New York Times bestselling author of Secluded Cabin Sleep 6. Oh yeah, I remember seeing that one, and I never got to that. You know what? I might have started that book. I feel like I did, but I didn't get very far. Rosie and Chad Lowen are barely making ends meet in New York City when they receive life-changing news. Chad's late uncle has left them his luxury apartment at the historic Windermere in glamorous Murray Hill. With its pre-war elegance and impeccably uniformed doorman, the building is the epitome of old New York charms. It's kind of like, if you watch Only Murders in the Building, the Arcadia, which I think is probably based on the Dakota in New York City. I don't know. I know way too much about random tidbits of things. One would almost never suspect the dark history lurking behind its perfectly maintained facade. At first, the building and its eclectic tenants couldn't feel more welcoming. But as the Lowens settle into their new home, Rosie starts to suspect... I may need to practice speaking. Rosie starts to suspect that there's more to the Windermere than meets the eye. Why is the doorman ever present? Why are there cameras everywhere? And why have so many gruesome crimes occurred there throughout the years? Very only murders in the building. And when one of the neighbors turns up dead, Rosie must get to the truth about the Windermere before she too falls under its dangerous spell. So that is The New Couple in 5B by Lisa Unger. So yeah, that one sounds pretty good. I'm excited about it. So book number 3 is Learned by Heart by Emma Donoghue. So Emma Donoghue is one of my favorite authors. My very favorite author of all time is Sarah Waters. I feel like they're very adjacent in their styles. Sarah Waters takes about 1 million years to write a book. That's her process, more power to her. I think Sarah Waters' last book came out in 2014. I've been waiting for 10 years for her to have a new book. And I read an interview recently, I think it was from a couple of years ago, where she was like 3 or 4 years into a book. And she kind of made it sound like she had another year to go, but that would have been 2023, and now it's 2024. Anyway, Emma Donoghue tends to fill in like the gap that Sarah Waters leaves in my soul by taking so long to write a book, because she takes her sweet time. So anyway, Emma Donoghue also tends to genre jump a little bit more. She writes modern fiction. She does write a lot of historical fiction, which is what Sarah Waters does really well. If you haven't read any Sarah Waters, I highly recommend starting with Fingersmith. But they both have, generally, I think Emma Donoghue always has Sapphic characters in her books. Sarah Waters has always had Sapphic characters except for one of hers. Though it might have been implied a little bit that maybe this character was Sapphic. But anyway. So, Learn by Heart by Emma Donoghue, which I got on NetGalley and have not gotten to yet, because I have several books by her that I have on my Kindle or on these shelves that I haven't gotten to yet. But I will. I'm working them into the TBRs in the coming months. So, the Goodreads description for Learn by Heart says, Eliza and Lister have never been this wide awake in their lives, and the slope with its curtains drawn wide is bright with starlight. They talk in whispers, not to disturb the maids who lie sleeping on the other side of the box room. The question Eliza's been needing to ask swells like a great berry in her mouth, and all at once she's not scared to let it out, not scared at all, not scared of anything. In 1805, 14-year-old Eliza Rain is a schoolgirl at the Manor School for Young Ladies in York. The daughter of an Indian mother and a British father, Eliza was banished to this unfamiliar country as a little girl. When she first stepped off the King George in Kent, Eliza was accompanied by her older sister Jane, but now she boards alone at the manor, with no one left to claim her. She spends her days avoiding the attention of her fellow pupils until one day, a fearless and charismatic new student arrives at the school. The two girls are immediately thrown together, and soon Eliza's life is turned inside out by this strange and curious young woman. Learn by Heart, Emma Donoghue's mesmerizing new novel, which came out in 2023, so it's been about a year, over a year. Tells the heartbreaking story of the tangled lives of two women whose intense and unlikely relationship will change them forever. So it definitely falls into the Sapphic category. Emma Donoghue wrote a hugely popular book that became a hugely popular movie, I want to say over 10 years ago, Room, which was a contemporary fiction. And that one was really good, but I really do like her historical fiction because, again, it's very Sarah Waters adjacent when she writes historical fiction. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Book number 4, I will admit I chose for November because of the title. It seemed very fitting. It is the first in a cozy mystery series. The name of this series is Lucky Pie Mystery Series, and this first one is called A Pie to Die For. It's by Gretchen Rue. I've not read any of her other books unless it's a pseudonym of an author that I have read, which I don't know. But also the cover just looked really cozy. I mean, it is a cozy mystery, but yeah. I do have this one on my Kindle, but because I've been on a cozy mystery audiobooks kick lately, this will probably be an audio read. So from the Goodreads description, for fans of Sophie Kelly and Joanne Fluke, I haven't read either of those ladies, it's the end of the tourist season in Split Pine, but a murder at the Lucky Pie Diner stirs up trouble for the sleepy town in this series debut. Estee March runs a family-owned the family-owned Lucky Pie Diner on Split Pine Island in northern Michigan. The pies at Lucky Pie aren't just good, they're magical. Ooh, so it's a cozy with magical vibes. With a family recipe that grants certain customers their greatest hopes and dreams when they eat the pie. The remote island is closed to outsiders over the winter months, but on the last day of the season, the unpopular new produce vendor, Jeff, turns up dead on his boat, and Split Pine Island's peace goes up in smoke. So this takes place in northern Michigan, so I'm wondering if it's like based on Mackinac Island at all. Tom Cunningham, the local sheriff, casts suspicion onto Este, who may have been the last person to see Jeff alive. Not to mention several people witnessed her getting into an argument with a rude vendor in some of his final hours. Este, or is it Este or Este? I don't know. E-S-T-E. Este decides to clear her name and her diner's reputation by launching her own investigation, which means she must turn suspicion on her friends and neighbors because only a local could have murdered the victim. As Este investigates, she uncovers a deeper web of secrets, finding that many of the locals have reason to either frame her or kill the victim. The clock is ticking to figure out the killer, and the clues in the case are flakier than an apple pie. Este will have to uncover the killer before her future crumbles. I don't even know how to top that description. Like, I don't have any witty things from my own mind to add. So we're just gonna go on to number 5. Number 5 is The Women by Kristin Hannah. At some point in my 50 by 50 series, which I don't even think is up yet, I will talk about this. But Kristin Hannah, I read Firefly Lane by her. It was like one of the first book club books that we chose. I hated that book so much, I wanted to throw it. I did not throw it. And I was like, I'm never reading anything else by Kristin Hannah ever again. Well, my sister read The Four Winds. As I mentioned earlier, she and I tend to have similar book tastes. And she really loved it. And then when I get into my 50 by 50, whenever that is up on YouTube, I'll talk about this. But one of my best friends, her pick for my 50 by 50 book challenge was The Great Alone by Kristin Hannah. And so I ended up listening to both of those books on audio. I listened to both of those on audio. The Four Winds first. And it is probably my top 5 favorite books of all time. I loved that book so much. It was so compelling. It was beautifully narrated. I think Julia Whalen narrated it. Read that one and The Great Alone. And that was one of the reasons I was spurred into listening to The Great Alone instead of reading it with my eyeballs. But anyway, I love that book so much. And those were her 2 previous releases, I think, right before this one, The Women. So that is what really motivated me to want to read this one. And I bought it as soon as it came out, and I just haven't gotten to it yet. Thus, it is on this month's TBR. From the Goodreads description, women can be heroes. You don't say. When 20-year-old nursing student Frances Frankie McGrath hears those words, it is a revelation. Raised in the sun-drenched, idyllic world of Southern California and sheltered by her conservative parents, she has always prided herself on doing the right thing. But in 1965, the world is changing, and she suddenly dares to imagine a different future for herself. When her brother ships out to serve in Vietnam, she joins the Army Nurse Corps and follows his path. As green and inexperienced as the men sent to Vietnam to fight, Frankie is overwhelmed by the chaos and destruction of war. Each day is a gamble of life and death, hope and betrayal. Friendships run deep and can be shattered in an instant. In war, she meets and becomes one of the lucky, the brave, the broken, and the lost. But war is just the beginning for Frankie and her veteran friends. The real battle lies in coming home to a changed and divided America, to angry protesters, and to a country that wants to forget Vietnam. The Women is the story of one woman gone to war, but it shines a light on all women who put themselves in harm's way and whose sacrifice and commitment to their country has too often been forgotten. A novel about deep friendships and bold patriotism, The Women is a richly drawn story with a memorable heroine whose idealism and courage under fire will come to define an era. So, historical fiction, Kristin Hannah, who I am a new fan of, even though she wrote Firefly Lane, which was terrible. It wasn't a terrible book, it's just that I think I just hated, I can't remember the characters' names, but the friend, not the one who was the married one, but the one who was the journalist, I hated her. And it's really funny because Kelly loved that book. Kelly is not a huge reader. She does know how to read, but she just, she has a hard time focusing, which I totally get because I'm all over the place. But she liked it. She read it a few years ago, I think. She really liked it. And then she watched the Netflix series, which I refused to watch because I hated the book. But Kristin Hannah is also a very prolific writer. Am I tempted to go into more of her backlist now? Maybe. But I think I would work backwards from I think The Great Alone, whatever came before that. Because I know The Four Winds was her last one, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I'll read some other Kristin Hannah at some point. Book number 6 is from another pretty prolific writer, Alice Hoffman. This is The Invisible Hour, which I think is her most recent release. I'm not sure. It came out also in August of 2023, so it's been a little bit over a year. I don't think she's had anything new released since then, but I've read a few books by her and I've really enjoyed all of them. I have not read any of the Practical Magic series. I've seen the movie. That counts. But I've read The River King, The Blue Diary, and I feel like there's one or two others that I read at some point in the past. But this one on Goodreads, the description says, the latest New York Times bestseller from beloved author Alice Hoffman celebrates the enduring magic of books and is a wonderful story of love and growth. That is a quote from Stephen King. The wonderful story of love and growth part. One June day, when Mia Jacob can no longer see a way to survive, the power of words saves her. The Scarlet Letter was written almost 200 years earlier, but it seems to tell the story of Mia's mother, Ivy, and their life inside the community, an oppressive cult in Western Massachusetts where contact with the outside world is forbidden. Okay, I'm already sold. Anything with modern day cult type stuff, I'm gonna read it. But how could this be? How could Nathaniel Hawthorne have so perfectly captured the pain and loss that Mia carries inside her? Through a journey of heartbreak, love, and time, Mia must abandon the rules she was raised with at the community. As she does, she realizes that reading can transport you to other worlds or bring them to you, and that readers and writers affect one another in mysterious ways. She learns that time is more fluid than she can imagine, and that love is stronger than any chains that bind you. As a girl, Mia fell in love with a book. Now, as a young woman, she falls in love with a brilliant writer as she makes her way back in time. But what if Nathaniel Hawthorne never wrote the Scarlet Letter, and what if Mia Jacob never found it on the day she planned to die? From the reigning queen of magical realism, and this is a quote from Kristin Hannah, oddly, this is a story of one woman's dream. For a little while, it came true. Intriguing. It only has a 3.6 rating on Goodreads, so that's curious. But yeah, looking forward to that one. That might be one of the first ones I start. The next book on my list, number 7, is But How Are You Really by Elle Danson. I think this is another title I was gifted through NetGalley and have yet to read. But because I have so many, and I know nothing about this book. I do know it has some LGBT representation. But other than that, I really know nothing. However, I own so many books, physical and on my Kindle, that I have not read, that I'm just trying to work through them. So that's why this one got added for November. Also, I like something with some LGBTQIA plus representation. That's important to me. The description says, a burned out bisexual confronts old demons, her estranged chosen family, and the ex she maybe shouldn't have walked away from when she attends her 5-year college reunion. So that seems very young to me. Charlotte Thorne does not want to go back to Hein University. Hein, I'm not sure, H-E-I-N. Her life post-college isn't what she expected. Her career in media is stalled. Her passion for drawing has fallen by the wayside, and she's done a terrible job keeping in touch with her willingly spend a full weekend with her incredibly successful classmates. Hard pass. But when her demanding boss, tech journalist Roger Luttermore, is invited to give the commencement address at this year's graduation, which falls on the same weekend as her 5-year reunion, Charlotte has no choice but to return to campus. The minute she steps foot on Hein property, whatever the name of the university is, the past comes crawling back in its glory and cringe. Disco parties at the LGBTQIA plus program house, sleeping in a twin XL bed, and her chemistry with Reese Kruger, the hockey player she rebounded with after a traumatic breakup. Suddenly, the weekend Charlotte has dreaded for months feels like an opportunity to go back in time. Determined to have some fun, Charlotte dodges her best friend's questions about her mental health, ignores her boss's constant Slack messages, and tries to avoid the truth about why she ghosted Reese 5 years ago. But can she really outrun her past and get her life together in 72 hours? So this is categorized as a romance, contemporary queer adult novel. Number 8 is Night by Elie Wiesel. I hope I'm not totally butchering his name. As I mentioned, I've already recorded part of a video series about my project 50 by 50, which is a project that I started 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. I turn 50 next year. I know it's hard to believe, but I do turn 50 in August of next year. And I wanted to read 50 books recommended by friends and family. And so this was one of those books that was recommended by a friend. It is a book that I wanted to read for forever. I had a crazy obsession with Anne Frank as a middle schooler, and the Holocaust, and just a deep fascination with that whole event. So this book has definitely been on my radar for a very long time. I actually got the audiobook on CD from my sister a number of years ago for Christmas, probably over 10 years ago. Never even opened it because I suck. So this was one of the recommended books. It was recommended by my friend Haley. So this is going to be on my TBR this month because I've got to start working on those 50 by 50 books or they're not going to get read by next August. So that's the first of, I think, 2 books from that project that are on this list this month. So this is the description on Goodreads. I'm going to try not to butcher the names of any places or people. Born in the town of Sight, Transylvania, Elie Wiesel was a teenager when he and his family were taken from their home in 1944 to Auschwitz concentration camp and then to Buchenwald. Night is a terrifying record of Elie Wiesel's memory of the death of his family, the death of his own innocence, and his despair as a deeply observant Jew confronting the absolute evil of man. This new translation by his wife and most frequent translator, Marion Wiesel, corrects important details and presents the most accurate rendering in English of Elie Wiesel's testimony to what happened in the camps and of his unforgettable message that this horror must simply never be allowed to happen again. So yeah, absolutely sounds fascinating and horrifying and probably a little bit depressing, but I'm gonna do it. Number 9 is another 50 by 50 book. And again, I'm going to try not to butcher the author's name, but it is The Alchemist by Paulo Coehlo, I think is how you pronounce it. If I'm wrong, please correct me. I have heard about this book for years. I remember when I worked at Borders a million years ago, it was a very popular book then. It's been out for not super long. It's kind of a very modern day classic. I've always heard that this book comes to you when you need it the most. And I bought it on my Kindle some time ago when it was on sale and haven't read it, but it was recommended by my friend James for my 50 by 50 project. So I'm going to read it this month. From the Goodreads description, combining magic, mysticism, wisdom, and wonder into an inspiring tale of self-discovery. And my Kindle shut off. Combining magic, mysticism, wisdom, and wonder into an inspiring tale of self-discovery, The Alchemist has become a modern classic, selling millions of copies around the world and transforming the lives of countless readers across generations. Paulo Coelho's masterpiece tells the mystical story of Santiago, an Andalusian shepherd boy who yearns to travel in search of a worldly treasure. His quest will lead him to riches far different and far more satisfying than he ever imagined. Santiago's journey teaches us about the essential wisdom of listening to our hearts, recognizing opportunity, and learning to read the omens strewn along life's path, and most importantly, following our dreams. And so this says it was actually published in 1988. I would have been 13 in 1988. 1988 seems like it should have been 5 years ago, but it was like 30-something years ago, almost 40 years ago. So it was published further back than I was thinking, but still in the modern era, I guess, if you're a Gen X person like I am. So the final book on my November TBR is a book that I'm pretty sure got on NetGalley. I think it comes out in March of next year. It is a YA Sapphic romance. It is called Love Points to You. It's by the author Alice Lynn. The description says it's a swoony romance between driven, practical Linda Fan and her rich, arrogant classmate, Angela Wu. When Angela offers Linda the chance to design characters for her... Why are there so many words I don't know how to pronounce? I think it's Otome. She gives her the chance to design characters for her Otome game. Linda discovers things she never knew about herself or her heart. Love is an art. 16-year-old Linda Fan has the skills and the drive to get into the Rhode Island School of Design, but not the money. Her parents are too busy paying for her stepsister's violin lessons to help Linda get into art school. So when her rich and arrogant classmate Angela Wu offers to hire Linda as a character designer for an Otome game, a love story-based video game, she jumps at the opportunity. Linda isn't exactly a romantic, but in her pursuit of her dreams, she discovers things she never knew about herself while also finding love with every heart she draws. So that sounds like it'll be like a pretty quick, easy read, a little YA Sapphic romance, which makes my heart happy. So that is it. Those are the 10 books that I hope to read in November, and if not completely finish, at least get them started. So please comment, like, and subscribe. Let me know what you're planning on reading in November. What are you most looking forward to? And I will see you next time. Bye.